So yeah, first of all, just an introduction of yourself.
My name is Nicole Brown. I'm with Suatin and I'm from the Morristown band.
And do you want to say just like what you do for a living?
I am a cook at Montana's in Coquitlam.
And what is this doc for you?
This documentary is part of my healing journey.
Sounds good. Um, do we want that in just like everything together in one sentence? That was good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, this is what we're gonna use from the beginning of the doc. So can you just walk us through what happened to your mom? Like, just as if you were telling to someone who doesn't know, because we already know now. But if you could just explain what happened with your mom.
My mom went missing in October 2017. She went mushroom picking with a friend and she never returned out of the woods.
And you mentioned when we were talking for the first time in the restaurant, you mentioned that she went missing a few times before, but I think she was actually with her boyfriend or something. I think it was something like that. She was with someone else. She didn't really go missing. She was just without her phone or something.
Yes.
So when you got the call that she went missing on that time, how did you react? Did you think it was for real, or you thought she was just maybe unreachable at that time? How did you feel when you got the call?
When my brother called me that night, I realized that it was serious because he was calling me and not just somebody random. And so I felt extremely broken because this wasn't just maybe she's, not in contact and haven't been in contact with people all day. It was the fact that this was a real thing and this was really happening. And that was really scary because I never thought that that would happen.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about how, because you mentioned you went, so after you got the call, you went home to help with the search and everything, right? So can you talk a little bit about the search process? How, if you, well, just the search in general, first of all.
I flew home that following Monday. She was missing on the Saturday, and I took a flight from Vancouver all the way back home. And by Monday evening, they had stopped the search for the day because it was dark. But Tuesday morning, I went up and saw my family and tried to comfort as best I could and prepared myself to go and help. Because of the fact that I was her daughter in that specific situation, the search parties didn't want to traumatize me anymore and put me in a spot where I would be very fragile. So the only time I got to search was when we got a tip from one of the psychics back home. And so at that moment, I decided I wanted to go and see if there was a possibility that we could find her.
Can you describe what you felt, because you were feeling, because you probably went legit inside the forest, right? Like inside the woods. Do you remember how was the weather like, or the smells, or just, the whole vibe of the place, the sounds that you heard when you were there? Like if you try to remember that specific moment.
When I walked into the forest with my cousin David, it was just about to be dark. We had about 30 minutes, I believe he said, to get in and try find her and get out safe before it got dark. And so we went in with another person to help us. And I remember it being cold and so much energy just to get in there, and how thick the forest was when you try and navigate through it. And the fact that I was inside of where she might have already been, or that I was close to her, it terrified me. But the fact that if we could get her and bring her back out, that's why I was trying my best to stay focused on our goal. And when we came to what I think was the spot where she was for a little bit, it was another point of like reality hitting me that this is happening right now. And she is somewhere in the forest.
How did you feel when police stopped searching? Because you mentioned before that you thought they could have, it was too soon to stop the search. I mean, of course, it was the winter and cold and everything, but when you got the message from the police that they would stop the search, what went through your mind? What were you feeling?
When they told me that they wanted to stop after a week, my heart broke because I had asked them if they can continue until they find her, and they promised me that they would. And at day 7, yes, I knew a part of me that maybe logically it wasn't possible, but I still hoped they would stick by their word. And when they brought me and my family into the search and rescue trailer to tell us that they weren't going to search because technically, considering the environment and her state that she could be in, there was nothing else that they could do. And so I just felt like my world crumbled, and nobody really cared about it, but I did, and my family, and that they can go home to their families, but I can't ever get my mom back.
I think maybe I'm the only one who knows that, because you mentioned that when we were talking through Messenger at first, you told me the story of your dad and how a little bit before he died, he asked you to just, watch out for your family and take care of them. Can you bring us back to that point when he was asking you to look after them?
The night before my dad passed, he had sat me down in the living room, and we were talking about my future and the things that he wanted for me and the things that he wanted for my mom and my brother. And he said that he wanted me to look after them and make sure, especially that mom was going to be okay, and to make sure that I was going to be okay, and that I was going to focus on my studies, and I was going to be something and make something of myself. And I tried my best to stick to all those promises.
Sorry. I have a cold. When when we met at first, you also mentioned, I wrote down some of the words that you used to describe how you were feeling, and you used the word anger when, especially I think when police said they would stop the search, you used the word, I don't think you used the word guilty, but you mentioned you were feeling kind of guilty because of what your dad asked you to do and what happened to your mom. And pain, of course, and then you also said you were broken inside. At this moment right now, how would you describe how you feel inside?
I kind of like frozen, I guess. And it's just not necessarily numb, but everything is put on pause for a bit.
When is it going back to play and not pause?
I don't know.
guess, what do you think that happened to your mom?
What I think happened was George took her and tried to cover it up that he didn't have anything to do with it, and got away with it.
Why do you think he would do something to your mom?
Because she was, I guess, a perfect victim, at least to him, of her being alone in that small town, and the fact that the only family she has is 30 minutes away, and the only contact she has with me is by texting and the odd phone call. So if she doesn't reply to me one day, to him it'd probably be no big deal. So if she went and disappeared, nobody would really notice.
When we spoke with your aunt, she mentioned that some people said that they saw George and your mom having a fight at a gas station or something the day that she went missing. Do you know anything about that?
That was a rumor that had happened. They looked at the gas station cameras, and the only thing that they got from the camera was George gassing up without my mom in the car. So I guess that was before he had picked her up.
And you mentioned a few times before, like, some rumors and everything. Why do you think people just keep, coming up with different rumors about this whole story? I mean, because they also said once that they might have found a body or something. Like you said, they heard that in the radio, but it was actually just a rumor. Why do you think people keep talking about that?
Because there's no actual answer to it. And so people keep trying to think of answers, think of possibilities that what could have happened. And so because there is no answer, anybody will believe anything. And
when we were searching on Facebook, we found this page. I think it's called Search. What is it called again?
The Whitson Search and Rescue?
I think it's a specific group to search for your mom or something. We saw a lot of commotion, people saying they want to bring your mom back and everything. Do you think this? Do you think what happened to your mom affected your family specifically, or the whole community, the whole village?
I think it affected the whole community, because after the search and rescue had pulled away and they had stopped, my whole community went out of their way and they gathered everything that they possibly could, all their time and effort, just to try and find her. And they went out every day for long periods of time, different sections, searching over and over and over again, just in case there was something or they missed something. And everybody knew her. And so they knew exactly who she was and how she was and what she meant to people. So to have one of our own be missing, it hurt everybody.
Do you think people will ever feel safe in their community, especially women? I mean, girls and who's left there? Do you think they feel safe now, knowing that what just happened to that girl that you mentioned, and what might have happened to your mom? How do you think people live with that now?
I feel like they don't feel safe. I feel like that everybody back home kind of now has a target on their back of which one of us is going to be next. And there's no validation, there's nothing anybody can say that we're not going to be next. There's no definite answer.
And do you think people just see each other as a suspect now? Maybe men in this case? Like, do you, when you think about your community and the people that were there, do you think, oh, this person could have done something, this person could have done something? Like, do you see different motives in different people, or do you have only one suspect?
I think I only have one suspect.
Now, when you were saying that your mom meant many different things for different people in your community and it affected all of them, can you talk about your mom? Like, what was her like? What were her hobbies? What was her routine like, or her humor, her spirit? What was just her whole vibe?
Mom was very independent. That's what she was really known for from everybody. She does that she wanted to do all the time. If she wanted to go walking all day, she went walking all day. She was very, I guess, extroverted and introverted, kind of mashed in one, because she could be by herself and be very content with everything, but then she would also want to converse with everybody and be so open with everybody. And the thing that she liked to do the most was be outside and be around nature. She never could sit still, and that's one of the big things that, like, all of my family just like, where is she? Oh, she's like walking and stuff, and like, oh, wonder when she'll be back. She really loved to bead dream catchers and earrings and necklaces and all this stuff. It was something she really enjoyed, and she tried to make a business out of it and sell it. And she did pretty well for a good bit. But then it just got to the point where there was not a lot of people around to buy them. And she liked to go mushroom picking, and she liked to go out and get firewood and stuff for the winter, and stuff that was like just very outdoorsy is what she was really all about.
It sounds, I don't know, I'm getting emotional here. What would you say was her passion, if you could just pick one thing?
One of her passions? Probably that she liked to make people happy all the time.
And can you describe for a person who doesn't know New Hazelton at all, what is your community like?
New Hazelton is very outdoorsy place. It's for hikers and people who like beautiful sceneries and lakes, and I guess it's just like an outdoorsy person's fantasy, really. You're just surrounded by nature.
How many people live there? Do you know that?
I think little over 3,000.
Now just going back to your mom. What does she mean to you?
What does my mom mean to me? Growing up, she was like not necessarily my role model. She was way more than that. She was kind of a big chunk of hope for me, that no matter how much life kind of knocked you down, that you'd always get back up. And no matter how many times life was so bad to her, she would get up and she would smile and she'd be like, okay, let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward. And it taught me a lot, because it was that you can't really just dwell on things and hope that things might get better for you, and you have to continue going, even though sometimes it might be very difficult. And so it was just nice to see that growing up, that there was always determination in her, and it was something that I feel like really kind of made this a little bit easier for me. Like, she gave me a gift that I didn't really need at the time, but I would need for my future.
And also in these lines, what do you think it's her legacy, if we can put it that way? Like, what do you think maybe you're carrying on from her? I mean, you just said that, but like, what else do you see in yourself that you think you got that from her?
The fact that I care a lot about people, and I really, really want to make people happy. And I like when they're happy because it brings me happiness. And the fact that also, no matter how many times life walks all over me, and I still get back up and I still try my best, not just for myself, but for the people in my life and people who have yet to be in my life, and just show them, like, no matter what happens, is there can always be good. And that's something that I'm pretty grateful for, that I got from her.
Do you look like her?
I can see it sometimes, yeah. We have the same eyes, and the way that when we smile, just before when we smile, we have like this, like, kind of like little glint of like happiness before you smile, and it's like you're already happy, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know what to call it. Or when we laugh the same. Just before we laugh, we kind of inhale a little bit too much, where it's kind of like a squeak.
What do you miss the most about her?
I miss that she was always there. She was always there, and that she just loved so much, and she made that known all the time, is that she had so much love, and you never really ever had to doubt, because it was always there. And I miss that I was taken care of. And if at the points that I couldn't look after myself, I knew that I could count on her when I needed help.
I guess for someone, I don't think I'll ever be able to understand how you feel. So this might sound stupid, but it's a real question. I'm sorry if it sounds wrong, but I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what's worse, not having her or not knowing what happened to her? Like not having her anymore or not having an answer?
I'd say not having an answer. And I only say that because you can get closure once you know why somebody's not here anymore. And when you don't have an answer, it's kind of just an open wound all the time. You can't heal. And there's no closure that can be brought because you don't know what happened.
I remember you told Erin and I about some of the dreams that you had with your mom. I think there were two, if I'm not wrong, that they were very touching for you, that you saw her again, and can you just tell us about these dreams again?
They're sort of like nightmares. Like she was in my dream, but it wasn't necessarily a happy dream, even though she was in. And the first dream that I had, it was of her in a bingo hall, and she was playing bingo, and I was standing beside her, and I was just like, "You're here," and people are wondering where you are, and what are you doing here? And she just kind of looked up at me, and she didn't say anything, and I continued to ask her, like, "What are you doing here? People are looking for you," and she just didn't say anything. And that kind of left me like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand. And then the second time she came into one of my dreams, she was laying in a field outside of Smithers. And she was just there, but it wasn't her. It was her ghost. And her ghost told me that she was okay. And that everything was going to be okay. But that she was no longer here anymore. And my cousin in my dream had pulled me away. And everybody who had searched for her went to her body to go and bring her away, and I just kind of was in shock because it was a very odd way of seeing her that way. I didn't think that, or didn't want to think that she wasn't gone.
I guess what, let's say that your mom is right here, right now. She's in front of you and you have the chance to talk to her, to have just another moment, or maybe the last one. What would you say to her?
That I loved her and that I was sorry. That if I had known that she was gonna be gone, that I wouldn't have moved away. And I would have stayed.
now trying to set a different chapter a little bit. What do you hold on to keep moving on? Is it your family, your friends, your counseling, the people that you met that are going through the same thing? What helps you move on?
When things get really bad for me, I think of my grandma, because every time that I've seen her since what had happened, she always tells me to stay strong. And I know that she's right. And I know that's exactly what Mom would want, is she wouldn't want me to be upset. And she would want me to keep moving forward like she always did. And that things like this happen. And just because things like this happen doesn't mean that you put things on pause. You have to keep going. And so I remember every time that my grandma had said to stay strong, I always remember that. And I always would like to think that Mom is saying the exact same thing, so that I continue regardless of how tough things might be.
I remember when you mentioned that for you, closure would be sitting down with George, no phone, no any type of media, no way to record anything, just you, him, and the truth, like what happened. Now that he's gone, what is closure for you if you can't do that anymore?
There's no closure.
Finding her body or something from her, or maybe herself alive, or just actually getting an answer, would that be sort of a closure? Or do you wanted to hear that from him?
I wanted to hear it from him. Like, yes, if we found her, we would have her back. And that's what everybody wants. We want her back, but we also want to know what happened. And I feel like regardless if we do find her one day, we're not going to exactly know why.
How did you feel when you got the message that he passed away?
I didn't know how to feel. At the moment, I was just kind of hoping that it was another rumor, because like I've already had to go through this for so long with no answer and with his denial, and for him to be completely gone. It's like the door is shut, and it's shut, and there's nothing you can do to get an answer. He's gone, and he took what he knew with him. And so I was so angry, but I was more upset than anything that they were both gone. And it wouldn't have happened like that if he was just honest about what had happened. Nobody else would have needed to go away.
You said once that there were also some rumors again that he moved to Vancouver. You thought that maybe he was coming after you. You were feeling scared and everything. The fact that he's not here anymore, does it? Of course, there's the part that he took away what he knew, and we won't know what that is. But do you feel any sort of relief that he's not here anymore?
The only relief I feel like we get from that is that his physical being would no longer be near my family. This is the only thing that I can think of that would be somewhat relieving, is he's not around us to harm us anymore.
Can you just say what you think that happened to him? I mean, the way he died?
I think that it was all the guilt that got to him, of him trying to hide what had happened and trying to live with it. It finally got to him, and his body betrayed him, and he just had a heart attack because of everything.
Do you think police did enough, or did what they should have done?
No, I don't think they did enough. I remember when I went up there to search for Mom, and they had choppers there. They had one police helicopter, and they had one search and rescue helicopter. And I had asked them, why not? Why is it sitting there? Why is the helicopter sitting there? Why isn't somebody going and searching and looking for her? And they kept saying because they had only two. And they could have done it all day. They could have looked and covered so much ground with that. But instead they let everybody go on foot and walk and be exhausted, and just so much time like that was wasted when we could have handled the situation better if they took more control.
Why do you think that? I mean, why do you think they didn't do enough? If they had all that, do you think it's just because it was your mom, and maybe because she's someone from the, an indigenous community? Do you think it's because of her background? Do you think because she's a woman? Do you think they just don't care? What do you think?
They don't want her to be responsible. And I only say that because I saw it firsthand of their efforts. They just stood there. That's all they did, was just stand around and talk on their radios and stuff. And it was like, get in your car, get in that helicopter and do something. Like, standing around, you ain't helping nobody. And to say that they did all that they could, or there was nothing else that they could do, was an excuse.
You think they don't want to be responsible for what, specifically?
They don't want to be responsible for another person's life. They don't want to be the reason why they weren't found. So that's why they didn't put so much effort in, is because you can't blame them if they're not going to really do anything. And so you let the community do it, and it's their fault. It's their fault that they didn't cover enough ground or anything like that. It's how I feel. As long as it's not their family, they don't get bothered by it. Just something that they can write off.
they would have done something different if it was someone else with a different background and not your mom?
The fact that my mom was First Nations, a little bit of me believes that that was the case, because in other cases there's so much more effort put in. It's on the news, it's on social media, it's everywhere. There's posters, there's rewards, and you'll only hear about somebody who goes missing who isn't white very rarely, unless this person has more importance than the majority. And the fact that my mom, to just anybody, was just another person, it made it easier to overlook, and it was so easy to make rumors or talk bad about it, because there was no title attached to her. She was just another person in the community. So therefore, her existence wasn't really anything to anybody else but our family and the people who knew her.
And is the case still open? Are they doing something now? Or are they still searching? Is there anyone still searching? How is the situation now?
The sergeant at Smithers RCMP had told me that missing persons cases, unless they have been found there, will always remain open. And as far as I know, if anybody's still looking, I'm not entirely sure if anybody is.
Do you feel like going back and searching a little bit more, or you think you're past that?
If I could, I would. I had an idea in my head that because I'm only 22, and that forest might be big, but if I went to move back home, and whether it was by myself or with my community, that we could spend, I don't care how many years it would take, but we could find something if we just continued and continued. But at the same time, is you can put the effort in physically, but emotionally for everybody, I don't know how well that would be. I don't think it would be that beneficial, because we'll be putting so much effort in and we won't have anything to take back. We won't have any clues. We won't have anything to show for it at the end of the day, and just be emotionally exhausted just trying to hold on to that hope.
Do you have hope?
I don't know. I want to say yes because she's out there somewhere, but I also want to say no because I don't know. And
now, I know that you went traveling not too long ago, and you mentioned that it was just you were going to meet someone that helped you through this whole process, and it's still helping you.
Sorry, 1 second.
Huh? What? I don't know what that. Maybe there is no space anymore.
Okay, let me stop for this.
Okay. Oh, is it recording already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Can you see it a little bit more? Yep, perfect. Good. Okay, so yeah, can you just, if you want to, tell us a little bit about your trip, what was the purpose of your trip, what you did there?
The purpose of my trip to Texas was to thank one of the people who's helped me so much in my healing journey. And as a part of growth in my life, to do something by myself and see if, one, I could do it, and two, if I was gonna grow. And I did.
And I guess just to talk a little bit about your plans for the future, where do you see, how do you see your life 5 years from now, for example?
5 years from now, I'd like to be able to feel more than just sad all the time, and have more understanding of the situation, and continue to grow and focus on what lies ahead, and go to school eventually and help my people with everything that we have to deal with and go through, and let them know that I know exactly what we have to deal with, and I'm here to help.
What do you want to study eventually?
I'd like to become an Aboriginal counselor. I feel that everything that I've unfortunately had to deal with in the 22 years of living, that I can help a lot of people. And so I think that would be a positive, considering everything.
And I mean, you said you want to eventually, if you become a counselor, go back to your community and help them and everything. But at the same time, you said that you don't really feel good when you're there because it brings you memories and everything. So, do you see yourself living there again and helping your community close to them, or do you think you're gonna continue in Vancouver? What do you think is gonna happen?
I would like to go and help the people there. I don't think that I would want to live in that community considering what has happened. But I'd like to see some growth in the community. I'd like to remain down here, not permanently though, so I'd like to if I could travel to different communities and help wherever I really could.
Is that your dream, or do you have something else as your dream?
Yeah, that would be considered my dream.
Do you see it coming true one day?
Yeah.
What gives you that hope that it's gonna come true?
The fact that I've been through so much and I'm still here. If I can handle this, then I'm pretty certain that I can handle a lot of other things that aren't as big as what I've had to deal with so far. So I guess my pain motivates me because I know what I'm capable of doing.
You said your pain motivates you, right? Do you think you will ever stop feeling that pain and then you will need something else to motivate you? Or do you think this is something that you're going to carry with you forever?
I think it's going to be a part of me. But at one point, it's not going to be a bad thing anymore. And yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
I just don't know if we clarified like who George is.
Right.
Like we've talked about George, or we think that.
Can we name him, or
Can you like take us back to the day your mom went missing and just say who she was with and
yes? But
why that makes
can
you
we
think?
name him?
I mean, it's what.
Because like there is this thing in journalism that if the person was not convicted, sometimes you can't say the person's name. But I don't know. I mean,
Because
he died, so I don't know if we are allowed to. Or
I'm not sure.
well, can we talk about him without saying his name?
Yeah. Well, just because we mentioned George before and he died, just so
Okay, so
to make sure that people know who.
Yeah,
Who
who
he
George is. Yeah, because
We can
like,
just say
we
that
know.
George was the last.
Yeah.
Last person. She was. With.
Yeah.
Just so people like know. If that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you, I guess, just say who your mom was last with, and then why that sort of leads you to believe that he was the main suspect?
Am I allowed to say his full name? Or just
maybe,
his?
Maybe just say George.
Just his.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
It's just who just explained that he was the last person that was with your
Okay.
mom, and
Why I suspect?
yeah, why do you think he is a suspect?
My mom was last seen with a man named George. And the reason why I believe that he has something to do with her disappearance was because he knew her very well. And he knew her life and what she'd been through and what her daily routine was. And I feel like she was his perfect victim. Because nobody would suspect that her good friend would harm her.
I guess one thing that we forgot to ask. It's just when you're not working, right? I know you're busy. You have 2 jobs, but when you're not working, what do you do? What are your hobbies? What's your life besides work and counseling? You know.
The things I like to do when I'm not working is I like to do modeling on the side, something that I really enjoy. It challenges me to get out of my comfort zone a lot of the times and be more social with people and grow in that part and just kind of doing things that I normally wouldn't do is sort of what I like. I like to make myself uncomfortable on purpose so I can continue to grow. I like to go to English Bay when I can.
Can you describe what your healing journey has been like?
It's been very messy. For a good portion at least, but there are other times where I kind of amaze myself of how not well, but I'm handling things. And it's kind of like I got in the motion of how things are. And so I know when things will start to get bad for me, and I know when there's going to be good things.
We have you on Facebook now, and sorry, it's interesting to see what you post because we can tell. Well, we only know you in a little bit, but we can tell that you have up and downs, as we all have, right? Like, even who's not struggling with that, we all have up and downs. But it's easy to tell when you're proud of yourself and everything that you've been achieving so far, and then you're feeling not so. I wouldn't say not so proud, but when you're feeling down because it's life. Some days we wake up we're not feeling that good, right? And it's normal. So, you know, do you think? I don't know how to phrase that, but do you think that the bad days, like, do you think the good days speak louder, or do you think the bad days speak louder? You know what I mean?
I think the bad days outweigh the good days. But again, it's not necessarily a bad thing because it shows how much I'm capable of going through. It's just unfortunate that I have to go through it. And so even though I am emotionally exhausted at the end of the day, I'm also a little bit proud that I managed to get through the day.
Is there anything else that we haven't touched that you think it's important to know about you or your story, or do you that you would like to say?
This whole journey, I've come to realize how much somebody's mental health impacts them. And when something bad happens, something traumatic happens to somebody, how it affects their life and the way that they live. I don't think I've ever had to deal with mental health to this extent ever, and I'm just amazed at how the mind processes things.
I think we got. I'm gonna stop that.